All right, so here's an interesting clip here from the Ben Shapiro show. Obviously, Ben Shapiro is a right-wing podcaster, very well respected amongst Republicans, conservatives in the United States and abroad. Has Ezra Klein on the show. And Ezra, of course, is a liberal. And Ezra and Ben have known each other for a long time. So Ezra here is talking about how government functions and also how it dysfunctions. This is all coming from his latest book, Abundance, which I think is a great read. And have a listen, and we'll talk about that in a second.
In Los Angeles, what they have done to increase the cost per square foot of the housing that they are getting taxpayers to subsidize is crazy. My view on this is that it should be possible to have the government actually clear things out of the way to make the things it wants to have happen faster. That was sort of the legacy of Operation Warp Speed, which is a policy that has been, sadly, in my view, disowned by both sides. But liberals have to get pretty serious about the question. If you want government to build things, then it has to be, at the very least, affordable and timely for the government to do it. If you've created rules by which government construction or things that are funded by the government for construction, from housing to high-speed rail, come in much more expensive and much over budget compared to letting the market do it or having it not happen at all, then in the end, you're not going to get the things you want. And it's not affordable to get the things you want. One of the stats from the RAND project that I found really striking was that if California had Colorado's housing regulations on affordable housing, then the same amount of money we are spending, because I'm a Californian like you, would have built 4 times as much publicly subsidized affordable housing. So to my view, whether you call that goal liberal or conservative, it is a good goal and the right thing to be shooting.
So here's where I've got a little bit of a confession to make. And that's that my views have somewhat shifted lately. For the last while, I've been following the mainstream conservative view. Low taxes, small government. Simple message, simple principles. And I'm not totally abandoning those, but here's where it gets funny. And I'm still a fan of Ronald Reagan. I'm an even bigger fan of Jean Chrétien. Jean Chrétien is my favorite politician, my favorite prime minister of all time, and that's a topic for another video. But when it comes to certain principles, like trickle-down economics, I really have come to a position now where I really fail to see the evidence of that working. What I mean by that is the notion that, if we somehow trim the taxes on corporations and they're paying a little bit less taxes, or the rich are paying a little bit less taxes, that tax money in their pockets is going into further investments and going to create more prosperity for the working class. Okay. Now, I don't want to pretend for a moment that the government is going to do a good job with that money if it gets it. In fact, I'm going to criticize that in a second. But the reality is that extra cash that is somehow found in these corporations and in these individuals, the evidence of that translating into prosperity is fairly weak. The truth of the matter is that if a corporation wants to grow, if somebody has an idea for a business, if our tax rate are competitive, and that's what I would advocate, is that we need competitive taxes. Those corporations, if they have an idea for growing the business, for expanding the business, or starting a new business, they will find the capital. They'll find investors, or they'll find lenders, and the capital will be there. We have got a whole bunch of monetary policies that actually encourage that to happen. So that's important. On the other side of the equation, on the spend column here, similar thing. I used to advocate for minimal government. Get the government doing as least as possible, because they can't do anything but F it up. And to me, that's always a valid question, that we should always start with the question, why? Why should government do healthcare? Why should the government do social welfare? Why should the government do infrastructure? That is an essential question in the equation. And I would never want to take that question away. But we are at a point right now where, even on the flip side, there's not much more that the government needs to do. To me, the last frontiers of growth in government functions has been around delivering affordable childcare, to helping mothers get back in the workplace if they want to, and really make sure that we make pharmaceuticals affordable for low income and seniors. Beyond that, government already does a lot of things. And one of the things that I'm appreciating from Ezra, a staunch liberal, co-founder of Vox, has wrote in the New York Times, etc., was that he's not really talking about what else government should do, what other value should government bring, what other problems should government solve, but he's actually taking a deep dive and looking at how government functions, or rather how it dysfunctions. And I'd like to issue a challenge to everybody watching this video, and it's a challenge that I'm taking on myself as well, is that if you are passionate about some government program, if you're passionate about some social good that the government is providing or can provide, or is trying to provide, I should say, I would challenge you to get to know deeply how the government is doing that. How much money are they spending? What is the budget required to do that? How many people are required? What's the organizational effectiveness? What's the processes that they're following and that they're laying down for this? And then look across the world, look at other jurisdictions out there, and how are they handling this? Is somebody else doing this better than we are? And so far, this level of knowledge has been kind of trapped in policy think tanks, in bureaucracies, in advisors. And we're at a point now with AI where we can discover a lot of that ourselves. We can bring to light all these things, just like Ezra did. And I think that as we start to democratize that information, as we start to bring visibility to that information, and we start as a people taking ownership of how government functions, this is going to, in my opinion, change the political landscape. This is going to, I think, shift politics away from the simple left arguments that we've been having for the last few decades into a level of thinking here. Because, and let's face it, politics follows culture. Politicians exist because they're trying to persuade you, and they're going to persuade you based on what you believe or where the culture is. But if the culture shifts, that is going to apply a major swing in the politics. And I do believe that this is going to be our opportunity for bringing a new higher level of function into our society. All right, I don't care about the likes. I don't care about the subscribes. I want to hear your comments. Am I right? Am I wrong? Am I off my rocker? You let me know.